All right, guys, today I want to talk about my experience using Wine Access, which is one of the only wine clubs I've tried that actually made me feel like I was drinking something special every time I opened a bottle. Because instead of just sending out whatever's available, they're actually tasting hundreds of wines to pick the few that are actually worth drinking. And each one comes with a really cool story that helps you understand why it was chosen, where it's from, and what makes it unique. So in this video, I'll break down how the service works, what kind of wine you can expect, and whether or not it's something that makes sense if you're looking to try out some better wine without needing to be an expert. All right, now what stood out right away is that these don't feel like random bottles pulled from a warehouse. Every wine that opened had a reason for being there. And you can actually taste that because of those hundreds of bottles they try out. Only one out of every 18 makes the cut. And they've got some people on the team who are masters, sommeliers, and master of wine, which, if you're not familiar, basically just means they've spent their whole careers doing this. They're flying out to vineyards, talking to winemakers, tasting on site. It's hands-on in a way that you won't normally see with wine clubs, and they're not picking stuff based on critic scores either. They don't use them at all. It's just what they think is genuinely worth having, which I really liked, because you end up with wines that just feel right. You can even pick up on that from the moment the box shows up. The wine comes packed with these really well-designed cards that walk you through its background, not just where the wine's from, but who made it, what makes it special, and what you might taste when you open it. And none of it felt overdone or technical. You're not being quizzed or expected to know the difference between terroir and tannin. It's just simple stuff like, here's how long to let it breathe, here's what food to pair with it, here's the kind of glass that'll bring out the best flavors. If you want to go deeper, there are winemaker videos, tasting walkthroughs, even podcast pairings for some of the clubs, but you don't have to dig into any of that. The basics are right there when you need them, and it's all just really easy to get into. And the club model itself is also pretty relaxed. You're billed seasonally, but only when a shipment's ready to go, and you can skip or cancel anytime with no penalties. It's less like a subscription and more like a really well curated wine drop that just shows up when it's supposed to. One thing I really liked was that you can add bottles from the store into your club box without paying extra for shipping. So if something catches your eye between shipments, you can just tack it on and have it arrive with the next delivery. It all shows up together, and they keep track of what you've had before in this section called My Cellar. So you can always look back at past bottles and reorder anything you liked. It really does make it easier to remember what worked and what didn't, especially when you're trying new styles or regions for the first time. Now, what's cool is how many different clubs they actually offer, and they're all set up around different types of wine drinkers. The most affordable one is the Sunset Club, which focuses on bottles from California, Oregon, and Washington. You get 6 wines every quarter for $120, which works out to about $20 a bottle. Really solid if you want an easy entry point without spending a ton. Then there's the Discovery Club, which is also 6 bottles per quarter, but comes in at $150. That one's more about exploring different styles and regions, kind of a guided tasting experience across countries and varieties. At the higher end, you've got things like the Connoisseurs Club, which sends 2 premium reds for that $150, or the Collectors Club, which is a single investment level bottle every quarter that can run anywhere from $250 to $400. There's also champagne, podcast, even a club tied to Decanter magazine. Basically, each one's built around a different vibe. It's really not about budget, it's about how deep you want to go. And if you're thinking about trying Wine Access for yourself, there's a link in the description and down in the comments. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and we might earn a small commission, which helps out the channel. And sometimes we do have special deals that you wouldn't get if you went directly through their website. All right. And once you've got a club going, there are a few things that make it feel more personal. You get 10% off anything in the store, which for me came in handy whenever I picked up a bottle that I've already tried. And they hold your wine if the weather isn't great, or if you want to wait and ship everything together. It's not something you have to manage, they just take care of it. Also, some of the wines aren't listed publicly or are only offered to members. It's not a huge thing, but it's kind of cool to get access to things you can't find on your own. Plus, everything comes straight from the winery, so it hasn't been sitting in random warehouses or passed between distributors. It's not something they'll harp on, but it's a big reason why the bottles show up in good shape. Once it gets to Wine Access, it's stored in climate-controlled cellars until it ships out. And if you want some extra protection, you can add on temperature-controlled packaging. That's $12, but it's free on orders over $300. Like, it's not something you have to think about, which is kind of the point. Trust me, if a bottle's been cooked or handled wrong, you'll know the second you open it. But that never happened here. You can tell they've built the system around not letting anything screw up the order. So if you like the idea of exploring wine without feeling like you have to know everything, this absolutely works. It takes a lot of the guessing out. The bottles are already chosen, the info's there if you want it, and everything shows up when it should. There's also a sense that you're building something over time. You try wines you wouldn't have picked on your own, maybe learn a little along the way, and start figuring out what you actually enjoy. And for the most people, that's really the point. If that sounds like it might be a fit, there's a link in the description. And like I mentioned earlier, we usually have special deals that you wouldn't find if you went straight to their website. Also, if you are interested in working with us or sponsoring a future video, just reach out using the email in the description below. I'd really appreciate a thumbs up if you found this helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave those down in the comments. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.